Welcome to Cooking from the Cave. I'm Chef Pete Truziak, and today I'm going to show you how to make my favorite dish, pork carnitas. Pork carnitas is a very savory dish that you slow roast or you braise that pork shoulder for a long period of time in very succulent juices and spices. And those spices and that juice that you add to it can be your recipe, or you can use mine that I'm going to show you today. The pork is fairly, very fatty type area where it comes from. A lot of that's going to break down, which increases that fat, will increase the flavor that you're going to get from these carnitas. What I like about it, though, is the two different textures you're going to get. You're going to get this wonderful succulent meat, and then when I show you at the very end, after those 4 hours of roasting, we're going to crisp them up, and we're going to do them right under the broiler so they get very crunchy on top and succulent in the middle. The flavorings I'm going to put on this today is going to be a mixture of some minor flavors. There's going to be cumin, coriander, chili powder, and there's going to be 1 teaspoon of each of those. Then there's going to be 1 tablespoon of Mexican oregano, dried Mexican oregano, and 1 tablespoon of Spanish paprika. I'm not using the sweet. I'm going to use the smoked paprika for this, so it brings out more of that roasting flavor. And I just pour this right on top. And then salt. Salt and pepper, we don't need to go too heavy on that with this because our salsas that I'll show you later on in this episode, as well as the guacamole, is really going to give more flavor to what we're going to be eating. So for salt, I'm going to kind of eyeball it, but I'm going to do about a teaspoon of it. And pepper's about the same. I'm going to eyeball it as well. And I fine grind my pepper so I don't get big chunks or cracked pepper in it. And now from here, you're just going to get dirty. You're going to rub your hands into this. You're going to massage the pork. So I start on the side with the fat. And as you can tell, some of it's going to fall off into my roasting pan. You just really want to get this nice and well coated. And this is a boned-in shoulder. So you may feel the bones in there. If you can get a boneless, that's great. I just got a nice shoulder that I found at the market today. And we're going to rub this all the way around. Get the spices on the underside as well. And if any of those spices fall into the pan, that's fine. The next is the bay leaves. I use 2 bay leaves. A friend of mine recently said, bay leaves are great flavor, but you learn quickly that there is a right amount, and then there's way too much for the bay leaves. He equated to 2 bay leaves are great, 10 must be even better. Well, that's not true. So the flavor of these, there's not much when you smell them, but when you get them wet or you start to cook with them, that's when the bay leaf flavor really comes out in the food, and you really start to identify with it. The next is our liquid. This is just roasted chicken stock. You got nice flavoring there, nice color. We're going to pour that in the pan. We're not going to go crazy with it. It's roughly about 1.5 cups to 2 cups. I'm going to go just shy of 2 cups. So I have about 1.75 cups. I just want to get the bottom of the pan. And from here, we're going to cover it with foil, and we're going to go ahead and put it in an oven at 275 degrees. And then in about 4 hours, we're going to peel this off, and I'll show you what happens next. Just make sure this is nice and tight in here. You don't want to let a lot of air escape from here. You want to keep all that moisture underneath your lid. You could do this in a Dutch oven, a big crock pot. You could even do it in a slow cooker they have on the counter. And from here, we'll just slide this into our 275 degree oven. We'll set our timer for about 4 hours. And we'll just listen for our timer and we'll come back. Alright, so now our pork has been in the oven for 4 hours. It's time to check it. To be honest with you, I've been peeking at it here and there. And I know it's done. And I'll show you why. Some signs that you'll be noticing. Okay, remember we talked about it being a boned-in pork shoulder? Obviously the bone is now totally exposed there. You can almost loosen it up. That meat's just going to fall right out. And there's no real use for pork bones. We can't make stock out of it anyway, so you can just throw them away. But here's where you get to have fun. You're going to really tear this thing apart. And what you want to do is tear it into very thin strips, almost shred it. And we're going to shred it. I like to use a fork, a good pair of kitchen tongs too. We're just going to pull into this guy, really just separate him, and you can see how he's coming apart, nice and easy. And we're going to try and get him into one thin layer of meat. So what happens is when we put them in the oven again, we're going to put them in and we're going to broil. And when we broil it, what will give us is that nice crispy skin on the top, and underneath will be this nice tender meat underneath, and it'll make great pulled pork carnitas. So we're almost there. You can see all that great connective tissue in there, and also just root around, make sure you get all the bones out too. There's really no point, again, in leaving those in here. And that looks good. And so at this point, we've exposed a lot of the meat. Now we're just going to put them under the broiler. So we'll switch our oven from bake mode to a broil mode. And we're going to slide this guy back in the oven, put him as close to the broiler as possible. You want this to happen pretty fast so it crisps up. Doesn't really lose a lot of temperature. And while that's going on, I have a couple of our salads. So our pico de gallo salsa, our guacamole, as well as a tomatilla salsa. That you can definitely get this recipe on the website. It's in one of our 3-minute videos. Check that out. But this is another thing that's going to go great with. All right. So what makes our carnitas such a perfect balanced meal is that it has your grains, which we're going to get from our corn tortillas. You obviously could use flour tortillas. It has your vegetables, and it has that wonderful protein, which is that pork that we were cooking earlier. I'm going to show you real quick how to heat up your corn tortillas. This will work for flour tortillas as well. Get yourself a nice dry skillet, flat bottom, and usually it's 2, maybe 3 per person is how I would figure it out for these. So you can buy an easy 10-pack at the store, and it'll take no time at all to heat it up. You can obviously have a couple different saute pans going at one time. And you just want to get that saute pan hot enough where you can hear it kind of sizzle. Again, it's dry heat, and you'll notice that corn tortilla will start to bubble a little bit around the edges. Maybe it'll turn color. If you're doing this over an open burner, you would just be putting the tortillas right on top of the open burner. Be careful of that, though, because you want to do it on a medium heat, and make sure you have a good set of tongs. You can see how that tortilla is starting to bubble. There's some steam coming off, and we'll just flip it over. It's going to soften up the fibers, the corn fibers in there, and it makes it very pliable so that you can just dig right in with the pork meat and enjoy your carnitas. Alright, just remember, regardless of how you heat them up, you got to make sure you do cook them some way. Again, just look for it bubbling around the edges, flip it, it'll bubble again, and then you take it out. The second one is almost ready. You can see how pliable it is now. It's not going to tear. You can fold it in half. The carnita meat is ready to come out. So we'll get our pork shoulder up. It looks gorgeous, smells awesome, and the liquid down there is just bubbling crazy like. So out of the oven it comes. While it's still hot, it's kind of like seasoning anything while it's still warm. We're going to hit it with a little lime juice so the meat can really absorb that juice. It's almost a must when you're doing this. And again, you could hit it again if you were doing it with over the meat while it's in the plate before you take it out to the table. But at this point, I'm just going to take a big old plate of pulled pork. That crispiness, you can see the color that's all over that pork there. It's gorgeous. Got a nice festive bowl. And I'm going to serve it family style. People are just going to have to dig in. And most people enjoy it that way too. I think garnishing this will be real simple. Plate up like this. Get your salsas, your sides all lined up. Final touch. Maybe some cilantro. And there you go. A must in every family. A meal that you gotta experience at least once. Try it out. Your kids will love it. Pork carnitas, a couple different salsas, guacamole. Thanks for joining us from Cooking from the Cave. I'm Chef Pete Truziak. We'll see you soon.